Hey guys, I've had several people express interest in seeing how they would mount up a soccer cleat to a skate plate. I figured I'd go ahead and maybe shoot some video and show you guys that process. I thought that would be a lot easier than maybe taking a bunch of, I already do videos, so it'd be a lot easier for me to just do what I do, show you guys the process of getting this mounted up. This is what she has right now, and as you can see, it's kind of shredded from, you know, playing roller derby. Oh, flying squirrel. Concrete will do that to skates, especially soccer cleats. Some of the advantages is that you can pick up these boots for pretty cheap if you know where to look. This one we got at a thrift shop for like $4. Another advantage is they are incredibly light. They mold to your foot really good, and they like kind of fit like a bologna skin around your foot. A lot of people have problems with their feet in regular skates, getting hot spots and things like that, or just hurting their feet or not fitting. And if you can get this around your foot, it's probably going to fit somewhat. You could also just go to a cleat store and try on a bunch of them, and you would know exactly what fit. It's kind of hard to do that a lot of times with skates because there aren't a lot of skate shops around, and they don't always have all the different brands. Some disadvantages: they're not as durable as regular roller skate boots. They have to be customized or adapted to mount. They're not as hard on the bottom, so some people could say that they don't transfer your power to the floor as well, to the wheels. We haven't really seemed to have that much of a problem with that. I don't really feel like it's a major problem. I don't skate, full disclosure, but I am a tinkerer and a builder, and I like to do anything with wheels. I've built lots of things and made things with wheels go faster than they should go. It interests me. And because my wife plays roller derby and I build things, I was like, I'm gonna make you some good skates. Worked really hard to make these skates light in many ways. They're running a Pilot Falcon plate, which is one of the lighter plates that I could find. It's also really low profile. Like in comparison to an Avenger, which seems to be really popular in derby, I feel like the Avenger just kind of sits like this. The Avenger is like, instead of it being down here, maybe the Avenger is up here. By the time you're done, it just sits higher. I feel like anything you can do to get yourself lower to the ground is going to give you more stability, more control, and be less likely to roll out, maybe roll your ankle out. And that's important to me and her. So got her low to the ground with the Pilot plate. It's also super light. It's lighter than an Avenger. What else is light on these skates? These wheels. These ones are Atom Poison Savants. A lot of times she rolls on just Atom regular Savants, which are a little more money than the Poisons. Poisons are stickier. The other ones she runs are slipperier. They have a higher durability rating, which means that her other ones slide better, just depending on the floor she's on. Why these wheels? Because they are light and they publish their weight. So a lot of the other skate wheels claim to be the lightest, and you can't figure out how light they are. Nobody gives how many grams their wheels are, or a lot of them won't actually say, hey, they weigh this much. I can't find anything published about Bont. As much as Bont seems to be cutting edge in their skates, they don't publish their wheel weights anywhere that I can find them. They just claim to be the lightest and then don't say or prove that. Good for them. Atom does. Atom backs it up and actually puts their weights online, and you can add up the weight and figure out what your skate's going to weigh. I do want to get some of the, I forgot the name of Bont's wheel that's basically the competitor to this kind of wheel. One of our friends is skating on them, and I told her, when I get a hold of your skates, Jen, I'm going to borrow your skates and take your wheel and weigh it. And she's like, do it, you know? So I'm going to weigh her skates at some point, weigh her wheels. What else did I do? This has a Bont micro bearing, which is lighter than a normal bearing inside of here. And then it's got a spacer. So the micro bearing plus the spacer weighs a couple grams less than a standard bearing. So when you add that up across 4 wheels, and that's 8 bearings, it adds up and it makes the skate lighter. This toe stop weighs a ton, but there's no way around that I can see. At some point I might try to customize the toe stop and lighten it, but for now I don't want to mess with that. So the skates weigh in it, I forgot what the weight is, but they're super light. I just talked a lot. I'm probably already boring you guys. If you're gonna do this, what are you looking for in a boot? You got to get the right boot to start. You want what is essentially an outdoor turf boot. What does that mean? It means the bottom is hardish plastic, not the ones with the, like, they make these indoor AstroTurf cleats that are like have rubbery, like almost like regular sneaker treads. Not those. You want these ones with this hard plastic. Not only does it make the boot a lot stiffer, it gives something hard to mount onto the plate, which is a little bit more of an advantage when you start running your screws through the sole of the shoe. You need something for the head of the screw to catch on and to not pull through the boot. And it should really look cool. I mean, these are so cool. Paid a little bit more for these, picked them up on eBay, and they were like, ended up being like 25 with shipping. So it's still way cheaper than a normal skate boot. Obviously needs to fit. These are actually youth boots, they're kids boots. But in youth boots, she wears 5.5 youth. So that's this. Boop, 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 boop. I have to grind all these cleats off so that it sits flat on the plate. And then mark out the plate, drill it out, and mount it to the plate. It's fairly simple how I actually go about grinding it. I'll show you guys in a minute. I've talked a lot, and nobody probably cares about any of that. But if you do care, there's what we had, and we're going to remove these and mount these up. Wish me luck. All right, I'm back, and I'm in my luxurious work area. Today I'm going to be working on the floor, on the carpet. This is my work area. Today I'm working on the carpet, on the floor, high tech. What do you need to do this? You are going to need a drill with a little drill bit. That's to make the holes. Maybe some more drill bits in case you need to make the hole bigger or you just need to start out smaller. I'll explain that later. You're gonna need your wrench to run your little nuts on your screws, and probably a Phillips head screwdriver, a measuring tape, and a straight edge to mark the center line on your boot. A pencil, because everybody needs a pencil to mark things. And a belt sander. This is probably the tool that will be the most inhibitive for people doing this, is to find a belt sander that they can use to do that. Okay, where do you get a belt sander for cheap? Borrow one from somebody. That would be the cheapest way. If you have to buy one, you can't find anybody to borrow one from, go to if you have a Harbor Freight near you, I don't know if Harbor Freights are across the country, what it is they sell really cheap, imported Chinese garbage tools. I shouldn't say Chinese, they might not even be made in China, that's kind of wrong. Okay. They sell really cheap, made in other places, imported tools that are like almost disposable. That's what this belt sander is, and I've had it for years and it works fine. It works fine because I don't use it commercially every day. If I actually had a job where I used a belt sander, I would never buy the tool at Harbor Freight. But if you don't have that kind of job and you need one every now and then, which is what I do, get one from Harbor Freight. I think this one was like, I want to say like 30 bucks, and they run like 30% off coupons all the time. You can just find them online. You can end up getting it for a lot cheaper than that. They're not that much money, and they sell the sandpaper there, and it's not that much money. Borrow one. That's the way to do it. It's cheaper. Oh, did I say earplugs? Safety third. Don't forget earplugs, because the belt sander's loud. You really should wear eye protection. I'm not going to because I'm dumb, so I won't be wearing eye protection. All the work I'm going to be doing is going to be away from me, and I'm not that worried about it, and I've made it a long time, and I'll just squint like this. That's the best eye protection, is just to squint. That's a lie, it's a joke. It's terrible eye protection. You're not supposed to squint. You're supposed to put on goggles. I really am convincing myself to put on goggles, but I'm not going to. Okay, so I'll show you guys more. First thing I'm going to do is remove her old skate from the boot, her old boot from the plate, because I need to be able to have that plate so I can hold the new boot to the plate as I'm kind of grinding it down and making sure it's going to work right. First step, remove this. Here we go. What do you have to do to remove a plate? You basically take these little screws off of the plate. You know, I never do this stuff one-handed, but I'm trying to show you how, so it's kind of weird. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna, there you go, pull off all the nuts, all of our little washers. Come off. Come out! There we go. And then I'll push that through the boot. So I'll get all those off and then I'll remove it. I'll show you guys in a second. This is the part in the video where I do that little speed up thing. I don't know if I have that speed up option on my video editing program. Probably. That's off. Almost done. That's all of them. Okay, so in theory, this plate should lift right off. Okay, boom, we're off. Ooh, a plate. Old skate boot is off plate and wheels. I'm really gonna have to take these wheels off. I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, that's another thing I didn't tell you guys. I got nylon nuts, so that makes it skate axle nuts, so it makes them even lighter. There it is. This boot weighs almost nothing. It is I can't really show you, but like, see how easy, like maybe that'll show you how light it is. Like, move around your boot like that and it won't be like, it's almost like, feels like you're holding a little piece of cardboard. Super light. That's the old ones. Super shredded. There, I'm outside with actual light. Okay, so if you look on the bottom here, all the cleats have been mostly ground down flat. And then I had to make screw holes through the bottom of the plastic on the shoe. You can see where I marked my center line. I don't know if you can see that, but see that like line coming up the middle of the boot there and in the back. See, I have to mark all that on the new boots as well. That's what I'll be doing. I'm just like already, look at all the sweat. Oh my gosh. Florida, it's like, it's overcast and it's gonna rain and it's probably still in the high 80s. It is ridiculously hot and humid and muggy and gross. But there's the boots, her old boots. I gotta do the same thing to the new boot, mark it out, drill it. But before we can mark it out and drill it, we obviously have to grind down the cleats because that wouldn't work at all. So we have to take those cleats off of there somehow, magically. If we had a cleat fairy, they could just magically wish them away. Or a fairy skate godmother, turn them into magic slippers. So we got to get that to sit flat on the plate. That's what we're going to do next. We'll grind all of these off. And that's going to be the probably biggest thing for most people to overcome, or the thing that makes them go, I can't do this, is they can't figure out how to get these off. Belt sander. If you don't want to belt sand it all the way, you could take anybody that has more tools or has access to a lot of tools, you could either take a little Dremel, which is like a tiny little cutoff wheel. It spins around and it's like a little abrasive wheel, and you could do most of the cutting with that, and that'll take off like the bulk of the cleat, and then you do the final on something. Okay, here's how you could do it. That would be, I just thought of a way. No real power tools. You take a hacksaw. Most people have access to a hacksaw. You can get one for a couple $. Hacksaw off the bulk of your cleats, and then you could take the whole, you need a big piece of sandpaper, and you put the whole cleat down in the sandpaper, and you grind back and forth to get the final leveling. The reason I say that, you need either a belt sander or some big piece of sandpaper, is if you try to sand these individually, they'll all sit uneven from one another. You'll have a really hard time, oh, I'm sweating so much. You'll have a really hard time getting them to match up and to sit perfectly flat, and they'll be like kind of like when you're at a restaurant and the table has one leg that's off, they'll be like tick, 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 tick. So if you grind the whole thing down evenly on one giant piece of sandpaper, then obviously they're all going to be even with each other, which is what you're going for. And then it'll be even on the plate. That's why I'm advocating for either a large piece of sandpaper or really ideally a belt sander, because the belt sander is almost big enough to set the whole skate on. It's pretty close. I have to like go back and forth a little bit to get the skate to fit, but that's why I'm saying that. Okay, I've got my trusty Spider-Man towel here that I'm laying this on, just because I don't want my legs to get covered in plastic dust. I set the belt sander on the ground upside down like this, and then you can turn it on and lock it in an on position so it just spins like that. Literally pouring down sweat. Word of caution, belt sanders are a power tool, and just be careful with it, okay? It's not something to be trifled with. You can hurt yourself with a belt sander. Down here especially, where it turns like this, if you got your finger caught in here and it pulled, I really shouldn't even be doing this with it plugged in, because that's just like, you're not supposed to do that. It should be unplugged if you're going to be touching it on anywhere where there's moving parts. But the chances of it accidentally turning on without somebody squeezing the trigger is ridiculous. Be careful here where this thing turns in to the thing. It could grab your finger and, you know, hurt you. But if you use common sense and you're relatively careful, like I said, I've been using power tools and dangerous power tools my entire life. I'm only missing this one finger. I'm just kidding. I have all my fingers, and like, I'm a musician and a guitarist, so like, I actually value my fingers. I don't want to lose them. And not that you don't value your fingers, but I value my fingers more. Not really. Okay, so I'm going to turn this on, and I'm going to run this thing on here like this while it's on, and grind off cleats. So I'll show you guys that. I've been grinding the boot for about, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes, and a lot of the cleat is gone already. I don't know if you can see that. An area that's going to be, it's a little bit trickier, is up here towards the tip. the boot has a little bit of a bow, like a bow, it bends up in the toe. So I'm gonna have to round this down a little bit as I'm working on the belt sander. And the goal there will be to have it flattened out, and when I screw it down, it'll pull the toe down a tad, which you have to be careful. You don't want to pull it down too much because it can like squash out your toe box. This one has, you can see the toe box is squashed a little bit, but you kind of have to find a compromise between how much you want to squish that toe down to get it nice and flat on your plate, and how much you're willing to squish your toe box of your boot. So this kind of something you're gonna have to figure out on your own and make a decision of how much you want to squish down your toe box. Because these boots are really flexible in the toes and the whole thing is kind of just like a synthetic cloth, I'm not that worried about bringing the toe box down some and squishing it, because it just kind of forms around your toe anyway. But definitely be careful, because if you squash the crud out of the tip of your boot, and it'll like wrap around the tip of your toes and just squeeze the front of your toes off and be uncomfortable. So don't do that. So I'm about this far in. I'm gonna grind some more and then see if I can get it closer. I'll show you guys in a second. All right, I'm sweaty. I made a mess. Pull those earplugs out. Look at, I made a big mess. I feel like I have it to a place that I like it. I'm gonna go out in the light where maybe you can actually see something and show you how it's sitting on the plate now. By the way, pull your shoelaces out before you start to run your belt sander. One of my shoelaces started to get sucked into the belt sander and I was like, almost had a dumb accident. So this is the way it's sitting on the plate now. I don't know if you can see that, but the back is pretty darn flush. It sits pretty good. It's gonna be something like that. The front's still lifted a little bit, but when I screw it down, I can't, let me see if I can get my hand in the, hold on, let me put my hand in the boot. There's a hand in my boot. Once this bolts down, it'll sit more like that. So the toe box will end up getting squished out just a tad. If you push it down like that, it ends up like kind of like bowing a little bit funny over here and around there in the toe box. That's what it looks like when you push it all the way down. That being said, the other one has been like that for a year, slightly bowed down like that, and it hasn't been an issue at all. So I don't think it's gonna be an issue here either. So next step is to mark out the center line on the boot underneath. So I need my measuring tape, a straight edge, and a pencil, and I'll show you guys how to mark that out, and then we'll start making lines for drilling, show you where to put the plate on the boot this way, forward and backwards. We'll keep going. And now I'm sitting on the concrete here in my driveway because I can't see in there. The light's terrible. My garage has no light. So you can do this without the right tools, because I don't really have the right tools. So I do have the right tools. I just don't have everything set up right. I'm like a mad scientist. We tend to have messy desks and don't like get our work area in order because we're more focused on the actual project than organization, like a dummy. Because I'm a dummy. Marking your center line on your boot. What do you do with this? Let me flip this over and show you. All right, I flipped my camera around. What you have to do is you basically measure across the widest part of the boot, which is from here to here. You measure the widest part back here and your heel back here, and you mark your center line back here on your heel and your center line on the widest part of the boot. You don't just eyeball it. It's got to be about basically the widest part, which puts your plate sitting at what looks like an odd angle, but that's actually correct on your foot. If you look, it comes off, it looks like sideways off the tip of the boot. Your eye would naturally tell you, hey, this needs to be over here. Your eye is incorrect. You need to come over here and put it off to the side like that. So it looks a little bit odd when you're looking down at your boots. And it's especially noticeable on soccer cleats because they're so narrow in the tip and they come up to such a little point that that point just looks like it's kind of sitting oddly on your plate. But that is the correct place. So first I have to find my center line on the new boot. So I'm going to measure across the middle, the width here, and then split it, make my line, measure back here, split it, make my line, and then with my straight edge, my fancy, like I'm still in school in the 1980s straight edge, mark my line down the center of the boot, and that'll give me the center line for where my plate sits. Okay, I'm holding up the straight edge on the new boot, and I kind of started it about the widest part there and ran to about the widest part here. We're talking about within a 1/16 or a 32nd of an inch. But for that's about 3 1/4, so I'm gonna mark the center line, which will be 1 5/8. Okay, I have with my pencil marked 1 5/8. You can see where I messed up and marked 1 3/8 the first time because I'm a dummy. So there it is, 1 5/8. Call it 2 3/8 is about the width there. So I'm gonna go with 1 3/16 as my mark. It's like magic. All of a sudden there's a mark. 1 3/16 is my center of the heel. Now I'll just draw a straight line through those 2 marks. All right, I'm holding my straight edge up through the lines. And I don't think I'll be able to show you me actually drawing the line. I literally can't do this with one hand. And I don't have a tripod. Maybe I do. Let me go look. All right, I'm back. And I found a tripod. Correction, I didn't find the tripod. Miss Candy Kern found the tripod. Made the marks on center. Watch me work with 2 hands. It's like magic now. I kind of go like this. While I was waiting for her to find the tripod, I ground the other one down. So there. When you're doing that, when you're grinding the second one, look at the cleats and just make sure you're grinding them pretty much even to each other, so that when you're riding, one doesn't feel higher than the other or anything like that. But you just want them to be pretty close. You're not going to feel like a 1/16 of an inch in your foot, probably. So now they're pretty much ground even to each other. I'll show you how they mount to the actual plate now. Okay, so we have the center line, which will tell us, like if you look back here, you'll line up the center of this line that we made coming out the back with the center of the plate. And in the front, you'll do the same, except my line doesn't come up far enough. Let me fix that. I'm just gonna roll it around like this. If you notice on this plate, it also kind of goes off sideways on the toe to where it looks a little bit odd. Is it still going? It's not sitting where it would look like naturally it would be on a shoe. It looked like it would be over here more, but it's not. It has to come off like that because this is actually the center of your foot and the way you walk / skate. So the same thing with this. When I mount this up, this will go like this. This will come off the center, which will be kind of off center like that. I'll line it all up and I'll figure out where to make my holes. Okay, the next thing we have to overcome is how far forward or backward do you mount the plate. The goal is to get the center line of this wheel over the ball of your foot. It would essentially be kind of, if you had a bunion, you'd line it up with where the bunion would be. Anybody have bunions? I have them a little bit, so that's kind of where you want it to be. So if there's anybody out there, there's always somebody who knows a lot more. I've only been doing this for probably a year or messing around with skates and stuff, so I am not an expert by any means, but I know enough to be dangerous. So I would imagine that the reason you'd want it right over the bunion is because that is where your foot naturally pivots up, like this. Like if you're on the ground, you pivot your foot up, it would pivot on the ball of your foot. And I would imagine to mimic that, you'd want the wheel there. So if you need to go up on your toe stops, it's at a natural place for your foot where the weight would be correct. If it was too far back, you'd be falling onto your toe stops all the time. And if the wheel were too far forward, it would take too much effort. You'd have to like do a bunch of effort to like throw yourself up onto your toe stops. So you want to be right at a place where that pivot comes natural. That's my guess. Again, full disclosure, I am not a skater. I just kind of have built a lot of things and have a pretty good understanding of, I don't know if you want to say physics or geometry or whatever, mechanics of what logically makes sense. That's where we're going to set this thing. Let's make those marks. I've got to get these wheels out of my way. I'll show you guys while I'm here. These are the micro bearings. They're a lot smaller than a normal bearing, and that's the spacer. Together, that is lighter than a normal bearing. Lighter is better. The plate is stripped. They did that so I can actually see the screw holes that I'm going to be marking in a second. So I'm going to line this up with the line here and the line back here. Hopefully you guys can see that. The line back here. Center it up. Then I'm going to mark just the back, just these 4 back holes like this. Right in the center of those. I really, really should get a Sharpie. If you could, okay, there's my 4 marks. Next thing I need to do is drill those out. Oh, by the way, pull out your insole, for goodness sake. Otherwise you're gonna drill right through the insole, and that's not good. I'm looking inside right now to make sure that when my screws come through, that they're going to be sitting in a place in the shoe that works, that doesn't interfere with the construction of the shoe. Everything looks pretty good to me. I can't stress this enough. When you're gonna start drilling these out, don't use the actual size drill bit that is the same size that you need for the final product. Basically, don't use the big size first. Get a really small drill bit. Start out with a really tiny drill bit, like this, to run your holes first. Because a tiny drill bit is a lot less likely to run around on you. And what I mean is when you start to screw it in, it won't go sideways across what you're working on as easily. It enables you to get right on the spot you're looking for, right pinpoint right onto the, yep, just like that. While you're doing this, make sure your tongue's out of the way. And your fingers, for goodness sake, watch your fingers. They all caught in the main part of the shoe and not off. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't going to come up over here in the side or something like that. But they all drilled up. I'm not sure if you guys can see that. They all kind of drilled into the main part of the sole of the shoe. So there'll be plenty for the screw to catch into. Hold this up here. Make sure all the screw holes align where you want them to be. I feel like that's looking pretty good. All right, switch out to a bigger drill bit. You know, step up just a couple times here. Your hand's more important than the tongue, by the way. Because a sharp drill bit will go through your finger like a hot knife through butter. Switch out to the last drill bit. This is the one that's really close to the size that I actually need. This. See, now I have, what this enabled me to do is when I run the drill bit through this now, it'll stay exactly where it's supposed to be because I've already made a smaller hole through there. That smaller hole will guide the larger drill bit into the right place. Again, watch your fingers, watch your hand. Run these two. I only drilled the 4 holes. Let's see if I can get that in the video. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4. They're at the center of these slotted screw holes. I didn't drill the front 2 yet. The reason is because when I screw the plate down now, I'll have the ability to adjust it forward and backwards on those slots. I can slide the boot forward and backwards to make sure that it is exactly how she likes her foot to feel when she's rocking up onto her toe stop. There's a little bit of personal preference in there, a little bit of science, and probably a little bit of voodoo. I'm gonna go ahead and screw this down, these 4, and then I'll have her try out the skates later on tonight. I probably won't show you guys the process of me screwing the last 2 screws in, but I'll just explain it right now. Basically, you will mark out those last holes while it's on the boot like this. You just, with a pencil, you go through those little holes and make your marks. Then you'll remove the boot from the plate, drill those last holes, put the boot back on the plate, screw everything down, and you're golden. That's basically the process for mounting the skate to the boot. I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys me putting on these 4 screws, and then let's see if there's anything else I can think of to go over with you. I'm taking all this apart because I have to be able to get to the screws, and they're all the way in there underneath the tongue. I'm wondering if these are going to be long enough. We'll find out momentarily. So I'm going to take the screw and put it right through the sole of the boot here. So I made the holes just a little bit smaller than my screws because I want to be able to go like this and screw that thing right down through so it gets nice and snug in there. There it comes. Woo! Look at that. The question is, will this reach through enough to get my screw on? I think I'm going to be able to get it. Well, basically, do I have enough threads here to be able to grab that with the nut? And I think I can. I think I can. We're going to put the other one in here. So when you screw this down, when you tighten it down onto the plate, the heads of these screws will become flush with this material here. the heads of these screws, once you screw the nuts down. Then when you put your insole in, you can't even feel that there's a screw head in there anymore. Put that on there like that. Come on, baby. Do you have enough? I think it is. Oh, yeah. I really need to clean these up. These girls are... The reality is they're busy playing roller derby. They don't have enough... They're not that worried about cleaning their skates and stuff. But me, as a little bit of a gearhead, the messy skates bother me. Okay. Just tighten that down. So I think about there. See? I don't know if you just saw that. No, they're making the boots dirty. I have to clean them. The last thing I want is dirty boots. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys the movement. Watch right here on the heel. Here's the adjustment you have. See that? That's what you're able to do. I'll screw that down, and then she'll try to skate on later and tell me how she likes it. On a real skate boot, the sole of the boot is made of a very strong material that the screw head can't pull through. These are not designed for that, but they are kind of a heavier plastic. And so far, on her old boots, I've never had a problem with anything pulling through. And these ones are actually squishier than these new ones. So I think these are actually going to work even better than these. Although, now that I'm holding them side by side, this boot is lighter. Adidas, this boot is super light. Nike, your boot's a little bit heavier. I don't know if you can see that, but those screws are sitting almost flush in there, and I haven't even tightened it down all the way. When I finish really tightening here, they'll be super flush, super flush. Sounds like the name of an infomercial toilet plunger. The Super Flush 2000. Insole back in. By the way, to be fair about these not being as light as the Adidas, these are the kids' Mercurials. Mercurial something 9. In adult boots, they're like over $200 because they're all these high-tech carbon materials and stuff. In the kids' boots, they're a lot cheaper and they're not as light, I don't think. I don't know. It's really hard to find that information online. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to go ahead and put the wheels on and show you guys a finished. I broke out her purple Savants because they match good. It's so cool. Purple and green is amazing looking. There we go. Oh my gosh, it's like they were meant to be. There's 2. I'm going to have to clean this all up. I want to see it all pretty. There we go. I'll go ahead and lace them up and get some final thoughts for you guys. There is the finished product, or pretty close to it. That's a pretty hot looking boot. It is crazy light. The toe of this is going to get squashed down a little bit more. One thing that I think is a good idea with a boot like this, and what we run for her, is we run a jam strap up around this part of the boot, all the way down through the plate down here. When it's just like this, and really with any skate boot, your foot is pulling on the boot, and then your boot is pulling on the plate. And there's a loss or a transference of force when you're lifting up that isn't going to be as agile or pull the wheels up off the floor as quickly as if you have a jam strap. The jam strap is going to go over the top of your foot and lock your foot directly to the plate, which I think is a great idea. I think that's for any skater. I don't know why more people don't use them. I think it just makes it to where when you pick your feet up, the skate comes up quicker, and that makes for more agility. It isn't really that hard. I think you can do it. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll do my best to answer what I can. I was saying this earlier, when it's all said and done, right now it's sitting up off the plate like that. When it's all said and done, this will end up down more like that onto the plate. It won't be completely down because the front of the boot has too much curvature, and the screws are back a little bit from the toe, so it'll end up being pretty much like that. What that does is you can see it starts to like buckle the material a tad, but my wife's foot will fill out the rest of the boot, and that buckle will pretty much go away and get filled with foot. She has like little Fred Flintstone feet. My wife has fat feet. They're like little club feet, we've been joking about it, or Hobbit feet. She has Hobbit feet or Fred Flintstone feet. She won't be bothered by that. We've been married a really long time. 20 years this year, yay! My wife is a really beautiful woman. Beautiful lady, beautiful girl. But her feet look like clubs. Anyway, there it is. It's stuck on my hand. I haven't said anything throughout the video. We're kind of at the end here, but We have a YouTube channel called Those Crazy Kerns. It's probably where you were directed to come here. I may not have this video public. I'm not sure. I haven't decided because it doesn't really go along with the theme of our channel. Our channel tends to be more like going out and doing fun things or silly things, and this is more informative. I don't know. Maybe I'll leave it up and make it public, or I just might make it to where you have to come directly here and it's hidden to everybody unless you come straight to the link. I haven't decided. But the point is, if you want to check out our other videos, it's really like something that we like to do. You can like this video if it helped you out. That would really help us out. Suggest it to other people, but subscribe to our channel if you want to see some of the other crazy stuff. We do have other skating stuff in there, some roller derby stuff, and there will be more in the future. That's a pretty phenomenal looking boot. Those Crazy Kerns making roller skates. You know, I might weigh these just so you guys can see what they weigh, because they are crazy light. And you can compare them to your boots and see what your boots come in at. So this skate, wheels, super heavy toe stop and everything, comes in at 2 pounds, 5 5/8 ounces. 1,068 grams. What do you think about your new boots, honey?
I think they're beautiful. Oh my gosh. They're so light. They're so pretty.
So what I'm checking for is how they sit forward and back. So when you rock up onto your toe stops, if they feel like they're balanced correctly.
Okay. They fit like a glove.
Toe stops.
So this actually feels like it's a little farther back on my, is that right?
It could be.
Like the weight's just a little bit different.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if we can slide them up just a smidge.
All right, so like I said, that's why you don't drill those last holes until the very end. So that's why I was saying you want to drill those 4 screws, and the 4 slotted holes give you room to adjust the plate forward and backwards. And then once you feel like you talk to your skater, if you're not the skater, which I'm not the skater. She's the skater. Are you the skater?
I'm totally a skater.
Say, I'm the jammer.
I'm the jammer.
I'm the jammer.
I wear a star on my head and have people chase me around trying to knock me over. It's fun.
Nobody does that to me. Thank God.
They would knock you over fast.
Yes, they would.
And you'd probably break something.
Yes, I would. That's all true.
Pretty.
Then you drill your last, I'm not going to show you this, but you drill the very last 2 screws, mount it, and you are golden. That is how you mount a soccer cleat on a normal skate plate.
And you make girls really happy.